The Dallas Mavericks definitely have to be one of the most low-key teams in the NBA. Most people don't view them as legit title contenders, but at the making of this video, they're currently the 5th seed in the really tough Western Conference. They're also 14 games above 500. No one's talking about them. And I actually think the Mavericks are better than what most people think. That's led me to make this video where I will be discussing whether or not I think the Dallas Mavericks are real title contenders. At the beginning of the video, I'm going to be talking about the argument for them being title contenders. Then I'm going to talk about the argument for them not being title contenders. Then at the end, I'm going to say what I think they are. But before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want to try to go with 3,000 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro. So to start with the argument for them being title contenders, the biggest thing in their favor definitely has to be the fact that this season they have absolutely transformed their defense. Because in prior seasons the Mavericks were a legitimate bad defense, but now with them getting a new head coach in Jason Kidd, he definitely has transformed them to be one of the best defenses in the league. At the making of this video, the Mavericks are currently ranked 5th in defensive rating, which is a huge improvement from the 20th ranking they had last season. By far the biggest reason for their improved defense has to be Jason Kidd, because it's not like they added a bunch of great defenders to their team. It's pretty much the same team of last year, as besides them trading Kristaps Porzingis, of course. When Jason Kidd was first signed, a lot of people, including myself, didn't really like it, but he's really transformed this team's defense, so I can't say too much. Their offense is a different discussion, but at least they've been good on defense, and that defense is good enough to give the best teams in the Western Conference trouble, because they just play so well as a defensive unit. They're not relying on their defensive talent or just relying on defensive players. They're just playing really good as a team. The next reason the Mavericks could potentially be a title contender is simply because of the fact that they have a top 10 player NBA superstar in Luka Doncic. If you ever want to win a championship in the NBA, you have to have a superstar on your team, and the Mavericks have just that, because they have Luka, who's one of the most impactful players in the league, top 5 playmaker in the league, one of the best scorers in the league. He has proven that him alone is good enough to win you a playoff game by himself. You can't say that about too much players, as we've seen against him versus the Clippers. We all know how good Luka is. Been playing amazing this season, averaging 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. Luka is capable of outplaying any superstar in a series in the Western Conference. This is including guys like Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, even John Morant. I'm not saying all those guys are superstars, but basically the best player on the best teams in the West. If I'm being honest, I actually would think I expect Luka to outplay all of those guys in the series except like Steph Curry, but he very well can outplay Steph Curry, because we've seen Steph Curry shrink at times. Regardless, having Luka Doncic on your team gives you a chance to win a series. The next thing I could argue for the Mavericks winning the championship or being title contenders is just the fact that this team has a lot, and I mean a lot, of shooters on their team. They have so much guys who can space the floor out, shoot the 3-ball at a good level, and that's what makes them somewhat hard to guard. When everyone can shoot on the court, it's really hard to guard. It's really hard to stop Luka Doncic. Obviously, they have Luka Doncic, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Dorian Finney-Smith, who's shooting 38% from 3. Jalen Brunson shooting 38% from 3. Spencer Dinwiddie, since coming to the Mavericks, has been shooting 41% from 3, although I don't know how long that's going to last, but regardless, it's not like he's a bad shooter. Reggie Bullock has been shooting 35% from 3. Davis Bertans has been absolutely trash this whole entire season, but he's supposed to be a shooter, so you could just hope he could occasionally have some good shooting games, but to be honest, I don't think he's getting that much minutes. But they also have Tim Hardaway Jr., who has been really bad overall this season, especially from 3, but I would say, he's still a guy who defenses respect, because he could get hot at any time. Regardless, even though this team's offense is not that good, they just have so much guys who can shoot threes, and that makes them somewhat scary. Talk about the negatives and the reasons why the Mavericks might not be the title contenders. It's the fact that surprisingly their offense just has not been good this season. I'm aware that in prior years the Mavericks have always been one of the better offenses in the league. I believe they even had a season where they were the most efficient offense in NBA history. But regardless, this year their offense has been absolutely bad. Maybe it's because of injuries, who knows, but regardless, hasn't been good. They're the 17th best offense in the league, which is below average. And honestly, even if this team's offense was good, the way they just run their offense is not an offense that I trust in the playoffs, because this team doesn't have that much great offensive players. They have a bunch of guys who could play a role and stuff like that, but I'm not really putting all my faith in a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith or a guy like Maxi Kleber or Dwight Powell to have a big game for me. Guys like Spencer Dinwiddie have been playing good since he's got there, but he's a really inconsistent player. He literally was not good the whole season before getting to the Mavericks, so he's not the most reliable player. Tim Hardaway Jr. is injured right now, and he's been injured most of the year, and he's actually been one of the most consistently inconsistent players in the league, and as I said, he's just not playing good right now. Jalen Brunson is definitely one of the most underrated players in the league, and I think he's probably their second best player now that Porzingis is gone. And I think you could rely on him to a certain degree, but it's not like he's a superstar, an all-star, anything like that. Depending on Jalen Brunson to be your second best player is not really something I would want to depend on. This team really doesn't have that much great offensive players outside of Jalen Brunson, Luka, and Dinwiddie, and I just don't think that's the greatest thing. I don't think you could win a championship with Jalen Brunson or Spencer Dinwiddie as your second best player. They simply need another all-star level guy on their team, and Kristaps Porzingis was supposed to be that, but he simply wasn't that. You're not going to beat the loaded Phoenix Suns with Luka Doncic alone. You're not going to beat the loaded Warriors with Luka Doncic alone trying to carry the team. That's simply not going to work. And when you look at the other teams, like top teams in the Western Conference, they all have a bunch of like guys who are like all-star level players, so just crazy depth. The Phoenix Suns, they have Devin Booker, they have Chris Paul, they have even DeAndre Ayton, who's putting in all-star level numbers, along with Mikal Bridges, who is one of the best role players in the league. Then you look at the Warriors, they have Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green, 3 all-star level players. Then they have Jordan Poole, one of the best bench players in the whole league. Then they have Klay Thompson, who we all know who Klay Thompson is. I think by the time playoffs start, we'll see him get closer to his old self. Then you look at the Memphis Grizzlies. They don't have that much all-star level players, but they have Ja Morant, top 3-point guard in the league this season with the way he's been playing. Then they have Desmond Bane, one of the best starters in the league. Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the best defenders in the league. Steven Adams, one of the better centers in the league, along with a lot of depth. Dallas is just simply out-talented by every top team in the Western Conference, and it's not even close. Out of all the top 6 teams in the West, I would say the team that the Mavericks are most likely to beat is probably the Grizzlies or the Utah Jazz, and to be honest, I wouldn't predict them to win in either of those series. I know if you're a Mavericks fan, you might not like me, but I'm just being honest. Honestly, pointing out what I'm saying is wrong. To conclude the video and answer the question of whether or not I think the Dallas Mavericks are real title contenders, the simple answer is no. This team does not have the talent to compete or beat the top teams in the West, especially when it comes down to playoff time. I'm not saying they're a trash team. They're a good team. Their record shows that. But you simply have to have more talent on your team if you want to win the championship, especially in today's really talented era. You can't win a championship when your team depends so much on one player on offense, because Luka is literally their entire offense. If Luka has a bad game, they have no chance at beating a good team, whereas with other elite teams in the league, if their best player doesn't play, they can still win the game. If Steph Curry doesn't have a good game, the Warriors have shown they can win a game. The Suns can win games with Devin Booker or Chris Paul playing bad. The Grizzlies legit have a winning record without Ja Morant, and I feel like the Jazz could win a game if Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert had a bad game. But with the Mavericks, if Luka Doncic doesn't have a good game, they literally have no chance to win, and I just don't think that's a team that's a title contender. The Mavericks are a good team. They probably could take some games off of a good team in the West. I don't think they have a chance at beating the Warriors or the Suns in a series, and those are going to be the teams they have to beat if they ever want to make it to the finals. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Mavericks are real title contenders. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content. Also, if you want this video with 3,000 subscribers, also drop a comment on this video as I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro.